Hey.
So just to start off, why don't you each tell us a little bit about the ventures you're working on, Mary Jane and ZinePak?
Sure. So I launched ZinePak with a couple of co-founders about 6 years ago, and we like to call ourselves a super fan company. We help artists, brands, and entertainment properties connect with their fans in really memorable ways. So sometimes that's through a really fun experience, and sometimes that's through a commemorative piece of memorabilia that people are going to want to hold on to for the rest of their lives.
So Mary Jane is the fastest growing media and technology company in the cannabis industry. We have proprietary technology, B2B and B2C, and on the tech side and on the media side, we're creating content and aggregating a lifestyle audience, much like Rolling Stone did for rock and roll within the cannabis community globally.
So I feel like your ventures might seem very different at first, but to me, they both are catering to super fans in different ways, whether of an artist or of a kind of culture around an artist. And I wonder what fandom means to the two of you right now in terms of like what your consumer is looking for and what you're expected to provide for them.
So we always like to say to think of super fandom as a psychographic, it's not a demographic, because if you're a 78-year-old, you can be a super fan of something just the way you can be a super fan of something if you're a teenager. So for me, the really interesting thing about fandom and super fandom in particular is that people kind of self-select, right? You kind of decide what property or entertainer or brand that you identify with, and then it becomes a two-way relationship. And especially now in the age we live in, people expect to have that two-way communication in relationship with the things they love. So fandom has become this sort of beautiful interactive thing where you're not just sitting at home watching the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. All of a sudden, we live in a day and an age where you can feel like you have that personal one-to-one relationship with the artist or property or entity that you're a super fan of.
Mm-hmm. I think the communities also of lifestyles and interest, as we've seen with platforms like Reddit and social in general, also want to be fans and engage with each other. Mm-hmm. So around maybe a particular area of interest, for example for us, which is cannabis across the board as a lifestyle, social, economic, wellness, and then sharing that information together and helping be a place, a voice to aggregate that audience.
Both of your ventures strike me as having elements of what the artist-fan relationship used to be like back in the day. Like there is a sort of nostalgic element of having this personal interaction with an artist and being able to find a community the way that there used to be like message boards, I remember. Are there ways in which the sort of older model of the artist-fan relationship plays into how you conceived your platforms that are obviously much more modern?
Absolutely. I think in our case, in a world where so much is digital, it's great to also have physical, right? It's nice to have something that you can touch, that you can hold in your hand, that is a physical manifestation of your fandom. And for 90% of the concerts you go to, maybe you're okay just having a ticket on your phone to get you in, or maybe 90% of the music you listen to, you're okay just streaming it on Spotify because you're a casual consumer. But for those things where you over-index as a fan, that's part of your identity, where you feel like this is my favorite artist, or this is the festival that I've been dying to go to all year. It's nice to have a physical thing that you can see, that you can be reminded of. So, in a world where so much is instantaneous and it's, here and it's gone and I'm going to snap it and then it's gone tomorrow, that's great a lot of the times. But some of the times, for the things that really matter and are really important, you want to have something that you can physically hold on to and show other people. And I think there's definitely a throwback element to the fan clubs and the fanzines of decades past. And then it was a necessity, right? That was the only thing you could do in the 60s or 70s to sort of connect with that community, because they maybe weren't in your area code. They weren't people that you were seeing every day. So if you lived in Des Moines, you couldn't just get online and talk to 1,000 other fans of that artist. So we definitely integrate some of those things that have been laying the groundwork of connecting fans with the things they love for decades and decades, but just with a 21st century feel, so that people can engage with something that has augmented reality overlays or VR overlays and really sort of enjoy it both physically but also in the digital space with the people that they're connected to, using a hashtag, for instance, to share their fandom across any space or distance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we think I think our outlook on that is fairly similar in the sense that we're a multi-platform brand and company. So yes, we have a web presence, we have a mobile presence. We're on broadcast television with Mary Jane has the Martha Stewart and Snoop Potluck Dinner Party show on VH1.
Best show ever.
Highest rated show on VH1 of the year. But, we also have on-the-ground activations, like really being in touch with your audience, that one-to-one. The benefit of our space and our lifestyle audience in the cannabis world is that there's such a close connection with music. So last year, we threw the largest 420 music festival in the world in Denver, which is the mecca of the industry currently. 18,000 people, sold out in 3 hours.
Wow.
And this year, it expanded into a 17-city tour. So all across the legal territories, just celebrating the lifestyle and allowing these fans and audience to engage with each other as well as the artists that they love.
Mm-hmm. Well, the idea of lifestyle, I think, really is closely tied to being a fan these days. I think when you say that you're a fan of an artist, you're almost expected to play into their lifestyle, the whole world around them as well. I mean, how does that affect how you think of the consumer for each of your platforms? Because you're working with a different artist every time on a project, whereas you've worked with Snoop very closely, and obviously his fan base and how it has evolved over many years, I'm sure, plays into things as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to work with such a diverse roster of talent. Last year, for instance, we worked with everybody from Dolly Parton to A$AP Rocky. So each fandom sort of has very unique traits that identify them. And you're right, a lot of these super fans are looking for more. So if you're a celebrity today, you're almost expected to make all of yourself easily accessible and available all the time. So these fans go beyond whatever the media is being created, whether it's an actor or an athlete or a musician, and they want to know, well, what do you like to eat for breakfast? Because maybe I want to eat that for breakfast. And what do you use to brush your teeth with? Because maybe that's the brand I should be using. And what do you think about cannabis? Because I want to make my opinion about what you like too. So it's very interesting to kind of look at look at the artist as whatever they do as their core talent as sort of the center of the graph, and then going out from that you have everything else that's lifestyle. So for these super fans, it's about not just that small bubble but that much bigger bubble of how do we encapsulate as much of this lifestyle content as possible to put it into a package that these fans are really going to appreciate and enjoy, because it's something that they're not getting anywhere else from these personalities.
And I would think that, from artist to artist, what fans expect is very different. From someone like Luke Bryan, he's, I would think, more of a man of the people. His fans expect to see themselves in him and what he does, whereas someone like Justin Bieber is kind of existing in another plane, and how you connect fans to him, I would think, would be very different.
Yeah, there's a very different approach for each artist, and also for whatever the project is that we're working. So sometimes we're helping albums launch, sometimes we're helping tours launch, sometimes we're working with fan clubs. So there's always a different set of circumstances, but the sort of through strain and the DNA that's in everything we do is creating the most connections between those fans and those artists. So you're right, if it's Justin Bieber, maybe somebody's not going to get to see their name in it or meet him personally, but by making sure that we're creating really compelling content and giving them information from Justin that they've never seen before, or creating some sort of product that is unlike anything they've ever been able to buy before, then that's still going to feel like a very valuable experience to them, because it's something that it's authentic and it's something that has value.
Mm-hmm. And what about for you, Ted?
Well, I would just say that, for Mary Jane, when it comes to engaging with our audience, it's one of the reasons, because it's such the demo of our audience is so varied and it's global, that we have advisors and partners, of course Snoop, right, who's a co-founder, and including though Seth Rogen, who makes content and is a partner with the site, and Wiz Khalifa, and Miley Cyrus has been a great friend of the family. Yeah. And this is the audience is this is a way to allow their audiences who particularly enjoy this aspect about their favorite artist to kind of congregate and engage specifically around one subject, right, mm-hmm. and around this lifestyle. So that's sort of how we see what our value add is for the artist as well, because you're starting to see interaction between, if someone is, a friend to and inside of the cannabis space or appreciates the lifestyle, that they're coming in and learning about through the door of Wiz, but then learning about Miley and so forth.
Miley, who's on the cover of Billboard today, I will add, looking
Kudos to her.
amazing. So I'm curious about when you first got this started with Snoop, what sort of involvement was set out for him? Because I think that, when artists are involved in, side ventures these days, fans are very smart and they know whether it feels organic and whether it feels like something they're really involved in or not. And I get the sense that this is something he's really passionate about. What is your kind of day-to-day with him like working on it?
Well, I wouldn't call cannabis a side venture for Snoop, right?
For Snoop, it's
might be
a way
his
of life,
primary
yeah.
venture. And I think that, it really involves him curating a lot of the creative and content that we make. He's a great sort of executive producer when it comes to bringing talent together for our tours, as well as how we program the site. And I think he's a great proponent for all the aspects of the culture that go beyond just the financial and the technical. He's very supportive of the innovative ways in wellness and the social benefits that come along with the industry, right? And very cognizant. He's done PSAs for us and for the industry so that there is, accurate information out there, because people do look at him as a beacon for this space.
Completely. And Brittany, when you're working with an artist, what is your expectation of them in terms of what their involvement will be or won't be? And how do you kind of work with that or around that?
So every project is a little different. If we're launching a subscription box, for instance, where an artist is going to be offering something to their fans every 3 months or every 4 months, and the involvement is much more than, say, a one-off project. But absolutely, the artist is always involved at a minimum capacity from an interview standpoint and from helping us design the concept of the package and the contents of the package. And if an artist is not involved, it's a project we don't take on. We decline probably close to 40% of the projects that are brought to us because we feel like our job is to be the protectors of the fans. So many companies out there are not fan first. They're money first, or they're artists first, and we like to stick up for fans and say we're not going to do something unless this is a product that we know fans are going to absolutely love. And we've butted heads with clients before where we've said what you want to do is not the right thing for the fans, so we're not going to do that. So if someone comes to us and says we want to do this to launch this album or to launch this movie or to launch this fan club, and the artist is going to just kind of approve it when it's done, we turn those projects away because the fans can tell when something's not authentic. And in the world we live in today with social media, you only have to get it wrong one time before your reputation is completely shot. So for us, even if it's a project we're white labeling that we don't put our name on, we turn down any project that we don't have the full involvement and participation of the artist.
Have you, having worked in this space for a while, both of you, have you seen the nature of fandom change in terms of what you find you can expect from a consumer or from a reader? I just feel like you said, social media has changed everything completely in terms of what fans expect in terms of artist-fan interaction. And I would think, too, that you would find with Mary Jane people coming to it maybe who you wouldn't have expected at first, or what have sort of the unexpected findings been for both of you in terms of what consumers are willing to do for fans?
Well, I think that one thing interesting at Mary Jane that we've found is that fans these days, and the talent that we work with, the interaction is so direct and so immediate that you're creating basically a comfortable haven and home for that interaction and discussion, right? Whatever facilitates and helps grow that relationship, and that could be content, it could be tools, it could be live events. But you have to be very aware that the artist is so much more in tune now with who their fan is.
Sure.
And that's incredible. There's incredible dialogue that happens there. And that the fan knows that they can contribute something to the artist's even creative process to some extent, because the artist now has a much better understanding of who their fan is. So I would say that we see that often because, most people feel, our demo is incredibly varied, right? In age, the cannabis community globally is huge. Everywhere from 21 to 40, and about 30% of our traffic comes from overseas, and pretty much split right down the middle between male and female.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's been a real exciting experience to see how big this sleeping giant of this community is, and how much creating a place where they can engage with themselves and those who are driving the industry, how important that's been to them, because they didn't have it before us.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like they didn't know they needed it, and now it's here for them, and
Absolutely.
it's a huge magnet.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I think the empowerment of the everyday fan is amazing. The power to sort of level that playing field and say you have the ability to communicate one-on-one or have this one-on-one relationship with someone who 20 years ago would have been completely untouchable. So that's definitely powerful. Something else interesting that I've seen in the 6.5 years of the company is sort of the cultural acceptance of the word superfan. In 2010, 2011, when we were telling people, oh, we're a superfan company, people either would scratch their heads and say, what's that? Or they would say, oh, so you do stuff for tween girls who are obsessed with the Jonas Brothers and like 50-year-old men living in a home playing World of Warcraft in the basement. And I was like, no, anyone can be a superfan. Maybe you're a superfan of your favorite sports team or of your favorite TV show. And it just wasn't really part of the pop culture lexicon yet. And to see how quickly that change has sort of happened, and how people have self-selected into saying, I'm a super fan of X, has been really exciting for us to see, because again, it speaks to the power of a community and a group of people to affect the direction of the content that they love from these superstars.
No, I think it's a badge of honor now in a way that it wasn't before, and instead of like, oh, you're a crazy person who's obsessed with this one thing.
Oh yeah, people used to not want to say that they were a super fan, and no, the hashtag superfan was never used anywhere for anything. And now, I mean, you can look on any social platform, and people are again wearing it as a badge of honor, just like you said. About it could be anything. It could be a brand of pasta that they really love. So it's sort of even gone beyond just sort of the entertainment landscape into people identifying as super fans of anything they have an over-indexing affinity for.
Well, we're running out of time, but I do want to ask both of you. I mean, you both work with artists who have huge name recognition and sort of a specific brand attached to their name, which I would think makes it somewhat easier to work with them. If a lesser known artist came to either one of you wanting to find a new and meaningful way to engage with fans beyond Twitter and Instagram and everything else, what would you say to them in terms of what you've learned from each of your ventures, good things to think about or sort of avenues to try?
I think it's very important for artists and brands as well, and our brands to stand for something these days. I know we've all spoken about this briefly, but I feel like that artists and brands should take positions on issues and change the status quo. People want to leave a mark and surround and rally around issues that require thought. And I think that component is really important because the audience is so fragmented and varied these days. You've got, when it comes to music specifically, because of just how we stream music and the nature of how it's available to us and how we all grew up listening to music, it's much different than when you used to be able to segment, there's the rock and roll audience, there's the hip hop audience, there's the EDM audience. We wake up listening to this artist, this artist, this artist, and this artist, all from varied segments. But one thing that can connect us all as human beings globally are social issues that need change, right? For us, it's the liberation of cannabis and the benefits it brings to the world. And I think that's why over 70% of millennials in the last Pew report, they may not agree on much, but they do all agree on 70% of them on the liberation of cannabis. And it's having a rallying cry like that. I think that young artists who are out there who are looking to establish themselves quickly and gain their momentum and their bases, of course, make great music, of course, have it available on all the appropriate social platforms, SoundCloud, etc. But make it very clear what you stand for. I think that will attract a lot more of a viral awareness and audience.
Completely.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that speaks to the fact that people want to belong to something, people want to be part of something, and whether you're a new artist, whether you're a new filmmaker, people buy products, but what they really buy is the way the products make them feel, right? It's less about the actual product and more about how they feel with that product in their lives. So it's about knowing who you are, being unapologetically authentic, and being very good at telling your story. And if a new artist in any medium can do that, then they're going to have a great chance of success.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much to both of you. This was
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.